go! The final night of our EndZone preview shows the chase is on in Class 6A. Everyone's chasing Starkville. Can the Jackets be caught in 6A North? And in 5A, West Point's going to play angry this year. Could be one of the best Green Wave teams we've seen in the last 5 to 6 years. They're going to play good this year. But don't forget Oxford. They've won the 5A North title the last 3 years. They're hoping South Hill will look tough. We'll break it all down next.
The WCBI EndZone Preview Show is brought to you by OCH Regional Medical Center, Carl Hogan Toyota, East Mississippi Community College, and Max South.
The final night of our EndZone preview shows as we get set for the high school football season, which technically starts tomorrow night, but the real kickoff is Friday night. Robby Donoho, Braden Bishop, Adam Gore, one more night. The guys from the Miss 98 Scoreboard Show join us to talk classes 5A and 6A. And this year, 6A, I think it's anyone's who wants it. And then in 5A, I think there's one team that everyone has picked out to go all the way this year.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of teams not rebuilding, but some youth movement, I guess you can say, in 6A is really going to make it a lot more exciting. You're going to see a lot of kids that have some big playabilities that can come out and really make some things happen for their teams this season.
In 6A, Starkville won it all last year as the state champion, but you kind of like what Columbus and Tupelo are doing this year. Obviously, we'll get into more of it here in just a moment, but 6A is pretty much anyone's best guess because South Panola, this may be one of the lesser South Panola teams we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, I agree with you, Robby. And you know, talking about 6A, you have to be honest and say that you got to mention your powerhouses like South Panola and the teams in the north like Starkville, but not in our viewing area. But you have to be aware of some South teams such as Braden, and they're going to be up in this area for a few weeks. So won't mention a whole lot about them tonight, but we'll have to look at them later down the road.
Yeah, the Braden Bulldogs, they've got an area flavor that we'll talk about here in just a moment. We will talk 6A when we come back here on our EndZone preview shows. Everyone is trying to catch Starkville, which means they're trying to silence the buzz. That's going to be tough to do with a guy like Willie Gay on defense. The offense may go through some growing pains, but it's still a very tough Starkville team. And watch out for Columbus. Randall Montgomery's bird game. This could be one of the best Columbus teams of all time. They've got talent all over the place, and there is a flood warning in effect. You've been warned. Tupelo, you may be sleeping on them. You shouldn't. We'll talk about the Wave and everyone in 6A. Back here on our EndZone preview shows, we start with Class 6A, and you can't start talking Class 6A unless you mention these Starkville Yellow Jackets, the defending state champions. They seem like they're always there. 2 years ago, they lost to South Panola as they were bound to make an undefeated run for the title. This year, it's still a very talented team, but it's a very different team.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people are questioning how good they would be because of the change in quarterback. But the thing about it is they have a lot of guys on the offensive front coming back and a very good defense that's going to give that quarterback enough time to mature early in the season that will really help the Starkville team make another impressive run and pretty much stay at home for the championship. Yeah,
more than likely you're going to see that again. Now, you may see two quarterbacks to start with Quez Akins and Ben Owens. Akins seems like he's starting to get the nod at the quarterback spot for Starkville, but you know, we made a big deal last year about having to bring in Montario Montgomery, and he was outstanding for the Jackets. So is this a foregone conclusion that Starkville's just going to run through 6A North again?
I mean, they're going to be battle tested the first few weeks of the season. They're going to be really battle tested in about 72 hours, to be quite honest. Right. But I do think that Starkville is one of the favorites, if not the favorite in the North in 6A. They have Willie Gay on defense, so I mean,
that's all you need there.
They're going to be really, really good on defense. And as you can see, their offense was one of their biggest strongholds last year. They're still going to be good on offense this year, but that defense is going to control a lot of the defensive line of scrimmage, and that's going to help the offense. I've seen a lot of teams do that.
Yeah, the offensive line it may be the best offensive line in the state that Starkville has coming back for this season, so that will help out tremendously trying to stay as a balanced offense, like Ricky Wood said on our tour preview. So we mentioned Starkville, but I think the team from this area that's ready to make that push towards playing for a state championship is Columbus, and they've got all the pieces there. They would like to have what Starkville's strength is, the offensive line, because right now I think that's the biggest question mark with this Columbus team is up front on the offensive line.
Yeah, and this Columbus team has been one that's been really fun to watch come of age over the last few years. There's a lot of excitement inside that coaching staff that's really spread through the team, through the students, and things like that. So I really think this is going to be a big year for Columbus to make a significant step towards becoming a contender year after year.
You know all about Kylan Hill. You know all about C.J. Gore. You know about this Columbus team. And if you didn't get a chance to see him at the Jamboree, yes, it's Meridian. Yes, they got a new coaching staff, and they really struggle on offense. But they only gave up 1 first down that whole half against Meridian. When you have a defense that can do that to go along with your offense, Columbus sort of seems like they're really starting to put it together right now.
I think so too. And the Goler kid and Hill, they're one of the best 1-2 punches in 6A, definitely in the north. And they just run over people, Robbie. They run hard, and they have no cares when it goes to running. And they'll run the same play 2 or 3 times in a row until they stop it. Sounds very familiar of a Batesville team that I know too. So when you can do that, that says a lot for your team. And I've seen Columbus for a lot of years, and this is probably one of the best teams that I've seen in a while. And
we make a lot about Kylan Hill, but he's got a pretty good back right next to him in Kendra Connor, who's just as big and hits just as hard. So if you think you're going to wear out a Kylan Hill, then you got Kendra Connor and you got a Pat Jackson you can bring in as well. Columbus is loaded on offense. They're going to average 25, 30 points a game this year, and they're going to be very tough to beat. But the other team in this area that I think a lot of people maybe has, just cast aside and they're not worried about him, it's over my right shoulder, it's Tupelo, and we're going to start talking Tupelo with him because I think that's the guy that knows the most about Tupelo. Quarterback has been a big question mark. They have all the athletes. Where does Tupelo fit in Region 1, 6A, and 6A North as a whole?
I think Tupelo is going to shock a lot of people and have athletes that a lot of young athletes that people are going to hear about probably this time last year. There'll be a lot of kids returning as juniors and seniors next year. They have about 4 receivers. They have about 7 receivers, and they have about 4 running backs. If their offensive line stays consistent and their quarterback can get the ball off to some kids, they're going to score a lot of points. And on defense, you have one of the best linebackers in the state of Mississippi with Jet Johnson.
He got bigger, too. I didn't think that was possible. Yeah. He's huge now. I saw him out at practice. That dude is massive. Yeah. So, Tupelo's got a lot of pieces that you like for this season, I think.
And another thing, a lot of people see youth as being a negative thing. It can be a positive thing because these young kids can be hungry. They want to come out and establish a name, make a name for themselves. So that could be really big for Tupelo to have them come in. And we saw it in the Jamboree. They've got big play capability, and that's what I'm looking forward to. It's going to be a quick strike, big strike offense out of Tupelo. If that defense, can give them enough time to mature, I'm like you, I think they can really surprise some people this season.
Those are our 3 area teams, but South Panola is still South Panola, even though it may not be the same South Panola. Clinton's got arguably 3 of the best athletes in the state of Mississippi, in Cam White, Cam Akers, and Darius Mayberry. And then you also got Brandon in the south. You also got Oak Grove in the south. You got Petal. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams in Class 6A this year.
Probably the fastest team I saw in 6A last year, hands down, was Warren Central.
Warren Central.
They're an unreal team that brings almost everybody back next year, and don't count them out. Not really in our area, but they're really good. They put Tupelo out in the playoffs last year.
Madison Central, I would have, if Brad Peterson would have stayed at Madison Central, I'd say put them in right now for a playoff berth and watch out for them. But now you have a new coach in Anthony Hart coming back, so kind of you change things up a little at MC.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how they go. They got a good quarterback to build around, see how the new coaching system comes in, how the players respond to it. New season, new changes, could be very interesting.
It's going to be a lot of fun to keep up with Class 6A this year. There's so many different storylines. Lance Pogue, his final season at South Panola, a guy that came from Eupora. So there's plenty that's going to keep the narrative going in terms of who's going to win 6A this year. Going to make it very fun to keep our eyes on. When we return, it's into Class 5A on night number 3, our final night of the EndZone preview shows. West Point doesn't have any higher expectations than this year. It is state championship or bust for the Green Wave. Where do the Greenies sit in the 5A pecking order? People seem to forget Oxford has won the North half the last 3 years. Where do the Chargers sit, and what are they looking at this year? And then New Hope and Saltillo towards the bottom of 5A North last year. They're going to be much better this year. We'll talk Trojans, Tigers, everything in 5A when we come back. Back here on our EndZone preview show, we talked 6A, now we're getting into 5A. Obviously, we'll make our picks and predictions later on in the show. But in Class 5A, normally when we start off talking each classification, it's the defending North half champion that we're talking about. Not this time, because West Point, I think this is the year everyone has been talking up the Green Wave, as this is the year that they finally make a push for that state championship like they did in 2010.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good football team, really fun team to watch. Outside of the receivers, they don't miss a whole lot of talent. And even saying that, they still got some good receivers as well. So, this is a football team that plays with a lot of pride, a lot of intensity, and they want to get back and stay where they've been before. And this is going to be the year, all eyes on them, all pressure on them.
There's a lot of pressure, like you mentioned, pressure. The Green Wave faithful in the community, they put a lot of pressure on the team and the coaching staff to get that state championship. And they have the pressure again this year. And it seems like, talking with them during the tour, they almost enjoy being in the position where they have the pressure from the community on them now.
Yeah, and they have a quarterback that's joining their ranks right now with the Knight kid who played at Saltillo last year. So he's that's a little bit of a storyline right there, having switched from the classification to classification, and that's going to be an interesting look. He's a really good athlete. I've seen him for the last couple of years, and outside of the receivers and what may go on, he could make some stuff happen back there.
That's what West Point hasn't had probably since Michael Carr was there, was a guy who can pass it, a passing quarterback. That's what West Point has been missing for the last 5 years. Now, or last 6 years, I guess you should say. Now they have it. And then you also got Marcus Murphy, who may be the best athlete in the state once he gets to be a senior. He's one of the best athletes right now. You see him right here.
Absolutely, and that's going to be a big help to develop those receivers, more offensive threats. You have to see this kid in person. I mean, you see him on highlights. He's great on highlights, but just to see him in person and just his raw athletic ability he's going to be something special, as you say. We
talk about Marcus Murphy. We talk about Clayton Knight. Then they also got Demario Edwards, and they also got Chris Calvert, two guys that can also Calvert ran for over 1,400 yards last year, and Demario Edwards is one of their athletes. So West Point's got plenty of good players, and their defense is going to be physical and nasty. So everyone in 5A North knows West Point's going to be the team to knock out the block. Yet, the team that's been winning 5A North the last 3 years is Oxford. Where do the Chargers sit? Because now you don't have Jack Abraham or DK Metcalf on this team.
I think that Oxford is still – they're going to win quite a few games, and I do think that they're going to do well in Division I 5A. I don't think they're going to be at the top like they have the last 3 years. West Point is just too good. And gosh, goodness gracious, if you'll look at Oxford's first 3 games of the season, they could be on the cutting block early and figuring out what they need to really work on. I think their offense is probably going to be the biggest thing. But don't discount this team and what everything that they've gone through a lot of heartache. You can see right here. They've learned a lot, and I think that they're going to do well. It just may not be the teams of the last couple of years.
And I will say for the record, I think Jack Abraham got in on that touchdown run. DK's knee was down, but I think Jack may have gotten in. It was such a close call. So Oxford is still going to be Oxford. They'll still be in the running towards the top of 5A North. What about like a New Hope and a Saltillo, two teams that really struggled last year, but both were very, very young. But now all that youth has put another year of experience under themselves.
Yeah, and a big thing for New Hope is going to be the fact that they've got a lot of guys coming back defensively. That's going to allow the offense to catch up. I know that's kind of been a theme tonight is, youth has been the theme, defense being the key. But that is, early on, you've got to get this offense, new players, new skill position kids, in-game experience is a lot different than going up against your buddy in front of you at practice. Yeah. So that defense is really going to help New Hope come of age, and I really think New Hope has a pretty good chance midway to later in the season to really kind of surprise some people and make some noise.
I think that's what last year maybe hurt them a little bit, is that they had such a great season from the year before in 2014, and everyone knew, don't sleep on New Hope this year. They have that sort of underdog role back to them, which I think is really going to help out New Hope. What about a Saltillo? Went winless last year. I know that really hurt Pat Bird and Tigers, but they were extremely young last season, and you bring back a top rusher like Dontel Young, even though they're going to have a new quarterback. Saltillo does have some good pieces in place where they're going to be able to compete again, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to mention something, Robbie, that's true. You have some teams like Lake Cormorant in that division, and Center Hill, who's lost a lot of players.
Lewisburg too.
Clarksdale's lost their offensive firepower. That's going to open up some slots for some teams that may not be super above average, but they will get in with the 3 and the 4 slots. And I do think that could possibly be your new hopes, and maybe Lake Cormorant, who has a dandy dozen on their team right now. So that's going to be an interesting division to watch, and it could be really interesting if Oxford falls to number 3 in division, or maybe even
that opens
number
up
4.
the number 2 spot. You don't really know how Region 1 5A is going to shake out, and what kind of Oxford team is going to show up this year. So that's Region 1. Region 2 doesn't have any area teams, but one team that is going to challenge West Point, I think, is Grenada, a team that we got to see in the Jamboree that is pretty solid, played Knoxville pretty close. They have a guy like C.J. Avery. So if West Point and Grenada do face each other in that 5A North final, what kind of game is that going to be?
Not good. I'm sorry. That's just how good West Point is. Grenada's going to have to find some offensive firepower. They've got great defense, but they're going to put it together offensively, and they're going to have a perfect game to beat a West Point.
Anyone's going to have a perfect game to beat West Point this year, even Starkville, even Knoxville. All those teams that West Point loads up on to play in those first couple weeks, those teams are going to have to be ready to play because West Point's coming. And as I said in the videos, they got a little green with envy because they want to prove some people wrong this year. When we come back, speaking of West Point and speaking of our predictions, we're going to talk picks, predictions, state championships, division winners, all that good stuff when we come back on our final night of our EndZone preview shows. Picks and predictions time for Class 5A. And in 5A North, it seems pretty easy. Is West Point going to be the one to win 5A North?
Yeah, pretty much.
So no one's going to get in their way between them and playing for a state championship this year?
West Point.
I don't know if anybody's going to come within 2 touchdowns of it.
Really?
Yeah, that's how good they're going to beat people. And I might be wrong at the end of the year. I might be jinxing them now, but, they're really good.
Don't let them get a lead on you. That's all I'm going to say. With the way they play, how physical they are on defense and on offense, if they get a lead on you, they are going to ground and pound you to death. So any team that's playing West Point this year, onside kick it to start the game or find a way to score early because you can't play from behind with these guys.
Yeah, you're going to have to use their aggressiveness against them, to be able to be successful because if you try to line up and go man-to-man at them, it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Are they state champions in 5A? Hattiesburg has a pretty good team in 5A South. Wayne County's always going to be there as well. So, West Point.
Yeah. I just don't see anybody taking them on at least early in the season and late in the season. That there's a lot of stuff that goes on too. But I've got to go with West Point. We saw Wayne County last year, and I know Hattiesburg has got that kind of a little bit of 6A feel still left in them. But it's West Point.
West Point, your 5A state champions, also with me. I have been beating Hattiesburg. In 6A, this one has a little bit more to discuss because every year it seems like we talk South Panola, but I don't think that's the case this year. And every year we talk Starkville, but I think there's a couple other teams that you may want to bring up. So who's your champion in Region 1?
I don't know. It's going to be a fun year to say the least. I like Columbus. You look at South Haven, South Panola. It's hard to not pick South Panola, but they are down.
We're so used to it, yeah.
They are down. But, I'm going to go, and I'm sorry, Braden, I'm going to go with a slight, shocker this year. And as I said, Columbus is making those steps. I'm going to go with Columbus.
One key point here is that Columbus plays South Panola towards the end of the year, and they play them at Columbus.
Yeah.
So having that home field advantage is really going to help in that game. Who's winning Region 1?
It's hard to go against South Panola with the style that they do, and I know their athletes are typically reloading, and I think that the whole storyline with their coach going out and announcing in the last few weeks before the season started. So I think South Panola still reigns in Region 1 6A, and Columbus is going to play them tough. I think it came down to Columbus and South Panola.
They did last
year too. So Columbus is probably going to come into that second spot, Tupelo third, and they'll probably be just someone else in fourth.
Like an Olive Branch or South Haven, something like that.
They kind of falters after that.
I have Columbus winning this division as well. I think this is Columbus's year. I think this is the year that they've been all waiting for in the Bird Gang, the Falcon Nation, to pull this through. Region 2, is it Starkville, or is it a Clinton, or is it a Warren Central that takes Region 2?
Right.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to see that division on a weekly basis because that is a very, very difficult division to try to figure out.
We didn't talk about Northwest Rankin either with Toby Collins, and they're really good too this year.
I told Adam earlier there are 5 magnificent teams in that division, and only 4 are going to be able to go to the playoffs.
Yep.
So I do think that Starkville is the front runner right there, and I think that they're going to probably run house throughout the division. But you have to keep in mind of some other teams that's going to be on their heels, like some Warren Centrals and some Clintons. We ain't even talked a whole lot about Clinton. They're not in the area, but they have, like Robby said, some amazing athletes. And Northwest Rankin, it's a tough division. It's Madison
Very
Central.
tough.
It's a very tough division.
Yeah. Who do you have winning Region 2?
You know what? I want to fire up Starkville a little bit, give them a little bulletin board material. I'm going with Warren Central. I
Really?
think Warren
Okay.
Central's going to come in, and I think they're just one of these teams that have been quietly flying under the radar this season. And yeah, I think Warren Central's going to come in and kind of shock everybody and win this division.
You want more bulletin board material, Starkville? I'm picking Clinton to win the division because I think Cam Akers, Cam White, and Darius Mayberry, 3 exceptional athletes, and they return a lot of that offensive front. Yeah, if you're going to beat Clinton, don't get in a shootout with them because they will go up and down the field on you. That's how good they are. So 6A state championship, who do you have?
I guess Warren Central.
You're picking Warren Central to win it all.
Yeah. No.
Or who are you taking out of 6A South then?
Actually, I don't know. I don't have the 6A South teams in front of me, so I don't.
Okay.
So
Take like an Oak Grove. Oak Grove always seems to be there.
Yeah, we'll go with Oak Grove. How about that?
Brandon Starkville in Starkville this year?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, Brandon.
Yeah.
Forgot about Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon in Starkville, and sorry, Yellow Jackets, Brandon prevails by at least 3 touchdowns.
I'm changing my pick to Brandon. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Brandon's really good.
Which, by the way, they'll be in Tupelo in 4 weeks if you want to see that.
They
team
will,
too.
and Tyler Peterson's the head coach there, Louisville guy. Brady Anderson was on the Louisville High football team. He's now the quarterback at Brandon. I have Clinton over Brandon in my state championship game. I fell in love with Clinton last year. I think this is finally the year they do it, but I really hope we see a Columbus or Starkville make a run towards that state title. So when we come back, we will wrap up the show and look forward to Thursday and Friday on the End Zone. Well, there you have it. You're all set for the high school football season. We'll put all of our picks on social media by the end of the night. Until then, we'll see you Friday for week 1 of the End Zone.